I was 7 years old, my brother was 5. We spent the summer in the village with my grandmother. The grandmother was actually a great-grandmother, but she was quite vigorous and kept piglets and other animals. We were not particularly watched, and we were left to our own devices most of the time. The only restriction was the ban on leaving the yard. But we had a lot of entertainment in the yard. For example, a huge yard dog. He had a booth, and his chain allowed him to roam throughout most of the yard. At first, we amused ourselves by teasing him and running away to a safe distance. The chain did not allow him to reach us, but soon we got bored with it because he got used to us, stopped barking at us, and generally became peaceful towards us. He allowed himself to be squeezed, hugged, and ruffled his fur, and Grandma allowed us to bring him food in a bowl. Evening gatherings outside the courtyard were a special entertainment. On the outside of the fence there was a bench. The fence itself served as a backrest, and on this bench in the evening, after finishing household chores, the grandmother's girlfriends would gather. They had their old lady conversations, washed the bones of friends, and basked in the setting sun. During this time, my brother and I were allowed to wander along the road, run after street dogs, or drag a stick through puddles. These evening walks outside the yard made us happy. After all, the street provided more entertainment than the yard. Therefore, as soon as it began to get dark, my brother and I whined in two voices, "Baba, let's go for a walk." On one of these walks, we walked a little further along the road. After 3 houses, the road turned right, turning into a dirt road, and led to the highway, to the exit from the village. And before turning, we saw a house. The house is just like a house, only the windows are boarded up and the garden is completely overgrown with weeds. "We didn't even approach the house," the grandmother called us, and we returned under her watchful gaze. Late in the evening, already lying in bed, my brother and I discussed that house. It seemed mysterious to us, and this riddle needed to be solved. The next morning, we decided to break the ban on leaving the yard and explore that house. We just walked out the gate. We were sure that Grandma wouldn't miss us. We reached that house and simply climbed over the low fence. During the day, the house seemed completely ordinary. Well, the windows are boarded up. Well, there's a lock on the door. There was nothing scary or unusual in the house during the day. We walked around. Everything around was overgrown with grass. It was hot. It smelled of dust. We could hear the sounds of birds and even the voices of people from the road. It was quiet and somehow serene. After making a couple of circles around the house, we were disappointed and decided to return. "I'll go to the toilet," said the brother. "Do it here." "No, I can't here." What's the difference? But still, he did not relieve himself in the yard. There was a toilet behind the garden, and my brother went there. Fool, I thought. Might as well go to the grass and wait for him now. I made another circle around the house and tried to look through the boarded-up window, but it was dark and I couldn't see anything. I got tired of waiting, and I went to the toilet, opened the door. There was no one there. Angry at my brother for leaving without me, I went home. I walked and was angry that he ran away without me. In the yard, the grandmother was feeding the dog. I asked her where my brother was, and she replied that he had just been here. This upset me somewhat, because I had just been here. This means that the brother did not return. Just in case, I looked into our room, walked around the yard. I asked my grandmother again. She got angry and replied that she did not intend to play hide and seek with us. Then I physically felt what the expression, heart in the heels, means. Suddenly, I realized that my brother had fallen into the toilet of that house. I didn't look there. I ran with all my might back, imagining on the way how my brother was drowning in sewage, or maybe he had already choked. He jerked open the toilet door and looked through the hole. There was just land there, completely dry and hard. There was no puddle, no fresh poop. I poked this ground with a stick. It is quite obvious that there is nowhere to fail here. I didn't understand anything. It was stupid to tell Grandma, but there was no way out. Where could the brother have gone? From that house to ours, there is nothing. You can see the gate from the gate. There is absolutely nowhere to turn. Confused, I climbed over the fence and walked towards our house. People were running towards me along the road. One man was carrying something in his arms. Something big. I ran towards him. First, I recognized my brother's t-shirt, and then he himself. We ran up to our gate at the same time. My brother's t-shirt was torn, and there was blood on his shoulder. The grandmother ran out and started wailing. They carried my brother into the house, and the man began to say that he had found him near his house. My brother saw me, grabbed my hand and pulled me towards him. "I'm alive," he asked in my ear. I answered in the affirmative. He asked several times, "Are you sure?" But not in the ear. Others heard it too. I just said that. Exactly, exactly. People dispersed. There were no particular injuries on my brother, only his shoulder was scratched. His t-shirt was dirty and torn. Seeing that nothing special had happened to my brother, and not paying attention to his emotional state, the grandmother told us to wash ourselves and left. My brother and I were left alone. He looked at me, and I was afraid to ask him what happened. After a short silence, the brother asked again. I'm alive. I got angry. What a question. Yes, you are alive. What are you, a fool? Are you alive? Asked the brother. This drove me crazy. I brought him a clean t-shirt and collapsed on my bed. We didn't talk about anything else. I was angry and decided to leave everything for the morning. My mother woke me up. It was amazing and pleasant. My parents were supposed to arrive only at the end of the summer, but when I saw my mother, I was happy because I had already missed it. But it turned out that Mom was not happy. Quite dryly, she told me to get dressed and go to the car. I got dressed and went out into the yard. There was a father and some people in the yard. I went up to my father to say hello. He patted me on the head and told me to get in the car. Everything was strange. I understood that something had happened, but I didn't understand what. And then I saw the grandmother. She was in tears, and I was afraid to ask what happened. They didn't pay attention to me. The adults were busy. Only after some time it dawned on me from conversations that no one had found or brought my brother. He just disappeared. I never saw him again and never came to the village. But lately I remember this incident more and more often and want to see that house again.